Alright, look at that guy. Certified. Okay, this is somebody else. I don't know this guy. I only know CROWLEY Hellcat has that car, but he modified it a lot. But he has the red eye. As far as I know, this one, I think this one might have the new hood, but I didn't really see it. I have to look closer. Those goddamn traffic. Some people expected me to make a video about the new Demon 170. And I honestly, I mean, I think it's a decent way for the Challenger and the Charger to go out to have, like, you know, the, what is it called? The King Daytona Charger. And then to have the Demon 170. The only problem is, it's like, nobody's even going to be able to buy those cars with the exception of, like, the super rich. Because as it stands right now, they mark the regular Challenger Hellcats and the Red Eyes and the Demons. They mark those things up to unaffordable prices. Those cars began under $100,000. They have those cars marked up to $130,000, $140,000. In some cases, even $200,000, especially if it's a Demon. And the Demon 170, you know that, I mean, the mere fact that that car already starts at like $100,000, you already know they're going to mark that thing up in perpetuity. It's going to be like maybe $250,000 when you see it. And that's not really far-fetched to think that way, because they've pretty much done that with every single limited edition car. And that car is going to be printed only to like 3,000 units. So, no, for the most part, you're probably never going to see one of those short of a car show. And if you do happen to see one, it'll probably be in somebody's garage somewhere, because nobody is bringing that car out. It's like they showed you it could run an 8 point whatever, but you ain't never seen that car. You're just not seeing it. So this run is over, and there were so many things that they screwed up doing this run. First of all, the Chrysler 300, they made a 300C. All they did was they gave you the 6.4, and they didn't even bother giving it a Hellcat engine, which it could have had. So they screwed up the Chrysler 300's last call model. Then the King Daytona Charger, that's okay, but the problem is you have to accept the fact that you're buying this thing in a very limited color scheme. It's basically Go Mango with, it's got like some stripes on it, whether you want them or not. So it's a very limited color scheme. Now, the whole point of those last calls was that you could order and you could make it so that you could get any color combination, you could get any brake caliper color combination you wanted. The thing about it is, it's like you're definitely gonna, you know, have to wait for the thing to get built and delivered, but on top of that, you had to overpay for it. As far as I'm concerned, I've been saying it since day one, they screwed up the Trackhawk really badly. They didn't give it the aggressive Hellcat hood. Even if you wanted to put the yellow calipers on it, fine, but they didn't even give it better, like, wheels and tires. They didn't give it anything special. Then they made the Durango Hellcat. There's right now a lawsuit because people who ordered it claim that they said on the announcement that it was going to be limited edition and it was going to be discontinued for the model year. And then, sure enough, they opened it up to continue it for the next model year when they said they weren't going to do it. So a lot of those people are currently involved in like a class action suit, and they you know, they're a little upset, as could be understood, because they thought that they were getting a limited edition piece, and then they come to find out, no, you're not. So there's that. I think the Durango Hellcat, they didn't change the back of it at all, and they could have. They changed the Trackhawk's back end, and they gave it that fake-ass quad exhaust, which most Trackhawk owners, they go and they actually get a real quad exhaust. But the Durango, they didn't even give that one that fake-ass quad exhaust. So my thing is, there's no consistency with them building these damn products. So it was time for it to end. It's just like the Jeep WK2s, just like I'm driving now. It's a good car. I think, what is it? I've got almost 84,000 miles here. And, I was hoping to sell this thing. Well, not really sell it, but I was hoping to trade it for my new Cadillac before I hit 100,000 miles. But at the rate that Cadillac's going with their, building, they're not even going to start building my car until April. So I shouldn't get delivery for about a month or two. But at the rate that they're going, I'm probably going to end up maybe keeping this car because I already paid it off. I pay everything off early. So it is what it is. It's like I didn't really care to make a Demon 170 video because, again, that's a car that I'm not interested in. I never bought a Challenger. I never wanted a Challenger. I bought a Charger. It was a Charger Hellcat. It was fun for like a day or two, and then I said, you know what, this thing is so impractical. It's like, it's just a weekend toy. And then the thing about it was everybody else started getting them because they lowered the interest rates. They made it easy to buy one on lease. They had a lease where you put down $7,000 and you get one for $707 a month and all this bullshit. So it was like I was the first person that I knew on any of these car teams. There was like Team Vengeance. There was Team Move Over. It was like I was the first person that had that car. And then everybody else slowly gravitated towards that car. Like when people would sell used Hellcats, they went and they started buying them. So it was like after a while, everybody and their mom was getting them. And then in the third phase, then people started simply stealing them because they knew they could never afford one and they knew they'd never be able to buy one. So they just started stealing them. And then in the fourth phase, they started hijacking, or I shouldn't say hijack, they started carjacking people. So it was like, you don't want to keep a vehicle like that because if you've literally got a vehicle where somebody is willing to put a gun in your face and steal a car from you, or they're willing to literally follow you to your house and they're trying to come to your lawn and they're stealing the car off your lawn. There was a policeman and there's still the video online, and the guy was killed. He was shot and killed because he had 4 thugs that wanted to steal his Dodge Durango Hellcat. And the sad thing about it is the guy was a cop, carried a gun, and despite the fact that he carried a gun, you wouldn't have enough bullets to kill that many people. And notice I didn't say stop the threat or shoot to stop the threat. No. He didn't have enough bullets to kill that many people. And unfortunately, they killed him. He was able to hit like 2 of them or 3 of them or something, but there was like there's always a 4th and a 5th that you can't get, So it's unfortunate that you have to, like, in a society where they allow criminals to thrive, it's unfortunate that you have to think that way, but it's really a shame that had to happen, and all because he worked for what he had and somebody was willing to put a gun in his face to steal it. It's like if that cop could have been carrying an extended magazine with hollow tips and armor-piercing bullets, it's like I wish he could have had it because he'd still be here. They wouldn't, But that's what happens when you live in a society with these mentally ill liberals. That's what happens. You live in a society where you can't defend yourself, But you already know me. The Desert Eagle stays cocked. All right, I just want to make a very, very simple update. I did a video, I think about 2 or 3 days ago. It's kind of hard to even keep track because YouTube has kept some of my content in monetization limbo, and I refuse to make it public until it is cleared for monetization. So sometimes I may have 2 or 3 videos sitting in the background that don't go public until they clear monetization. And the reality is, YouTube, that's what they do. They're picky and choosy about what subjects get talked about. Usually a subject like this, I don't have to usually wait so long for because we're just talking economics, basic economics. But the story here, and I'm going to make this relatively quick. The story is Saudi Arabia considers accepting yuan instead of dollars for Chinese oil sales. So the bottom line is, and that was the picture I was using. You see Putin and you see Xi and you see the Saudi Arabian leader. They're up there making fun of the U.S. dollar being in the grave. But long story short, the U.S. dollar is in trouble. Now, if you really take a step back and you look at all the things that are happening, look at how recently they started talking up coming after your stove. Oh, your gas stove is giving children asthma. So, first of all, even if that was true, there's no way they would stop with your gas stove. They're going to have to keep going. Not only would they have to get your gas stove, but they'd have to get your gas water boiler, and they'd also have to get your gas dryer. Now, me personally, in the second house that I bought, all my appliances were electric. The first house, they were gas. But in this case, electric dryer, electric stove, electric water heating, or electric heater. So the thing about it is I'm already mostly halfway there. That's why going to an electric car or even going to solar panels on my house is not a large stone's throw. Because if I had my own solar panels and I was willing to spend the money for my own backup batteries, I'd damn near be self-sufficient because I really don't use that much power in a day. But what I can say is that America, as you can see, they've gotten aggressive with electric cars. They've gotten aggressive with solar panels. They've gotten aggressive talking about getting rid of things that use gas. The stove was just, one of the more recent things. It's just that the Republicans and the public pushback was so immediate until they backed off. But you can bet that they're coming back because you got to understand, when a bully takes your lunch money, they don't stop. They keep coming back every single day and they want more lunch money. That's just the bottom line. It's economics 101. So the reality is it's going to happen. What they are going to do is they will use the law to legislate stoves out of existence. They will either straight up ban stoves. Oh my goodness, this stoves, it's a danger to the children, the asthma. Never mind the fact that these kids are overweight and these kids are eating junk food and they're sitting and playing TikTok and they're playing video games and they're not getting exercise. Never mind any of that. The asthma that these kids have is most obviously due to the gas stove, right? Never mind the fact that they go to school and there's a bus and a car involved and there's fossil fuels being burned in the air outside. Never mind any of that. No. It's your stove. We got to get your stove, right? So they'll legislate stoves out of existence. They'll legislate gas dryers out of existence. They'll legislate water boilers out of existence. There's already a law that says by 2030, cars sold here in New York have to be electric cars. There's already a law in the books by 2040 that says that the trucks sold here need to be electric trucks. So it's not a far cry for somebody to say, yeah, they're going to legislate this stuff out of existence. They're literally doing it in front of you. How does that have to do anything with this story? Well, obviously, this story is about oil. This story is about natural gas. This story is about fossil fuels. So let's just recap what happened. So Russia invaded Ukraine. They claim that NATO, backed by USA, is encroaching on their borders and putting offensive weapons in surrounding European states, which is no different than what happened during the 13 days of the Cuban Missile Crisis, where America said that the Soviet Union was putting offensive missiles into Cuba, 90 miles off the coast, and that would give the Russians or the Soviets first strike capability. So the Russians are basically doing the exact same thing. So what Vladimir Putin is ultimately doing is flattening the eastern region of Ukraine, and he's going to ultimately create a buffer zone. If you don't know anything about war, a buffer zone is a place
where the enemy basically can't come. The enemy can't move close enough to you because you have made a wide gap space between you and them. So the enemy can't come into that wide gap space. The air defenses around Russia and Ukraine are formidable. That's one of the reasons why it's very difficult for you to fly fighter jets around Russia or Ukraine. So Russia is more worried about the offensive weapons than they are about fighter jets. So the reality is that they're creating a buffer zone. They're destroying portions of eastern Ukraine to make sure that these people never come back. So Europe is never going to be the same. A lot of those people who are now refugees, they are never coming home. There's nothing to come home to. So what did America do? America put sanctions on Russia. Now, up until this war started, Russia was shipping America over 600,000 barrels of oil a week. Oil was cheap. Natural gas was cheaper. Fossil fuels in general were cheaper. Crude oil was cheaper. We were getting a large amount of oil from Russia, right? A large portion of Europe was getting a large amount of their oil from Russia, specifically Germany. The Nord Stream pipeline, I'm sure you heard of that. Nord Stream 2 pipeline, I'm sure you heard of that. Also, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and China were getting a large amount of their oil from Russia. So when America said, oh yeah, well, we're sanctioning Russia, we're cutting you off, and they demanded that all of the other countries cut Russia off too. Some of the other countries jumped right on the bandwagon and said, yeah, America's doing it, we're going to do it too. However, a lot of these other countries thought about it and they were like, wait a minute. We have serious energy problems. Pakistan and Bangladesh, if you watch WION news, it's Indian news we own. If you watch that, they would show you the lines of people waiting in Bangladesh and Pakistan and India trying to get just enough gasoline for their little putt-putt scooters. And the reality was that they didn't want to sanction Russia at all. They didn't care about Ukraine. They certainly didn't want to sanction Russia. So the reality is, by sanctioning Russia, oil prices skyrocketed. You felt that 1 year ago to this point. When I did that I am an oil man stock run with that gas and oil stocks, that was a year ago. Gas and oil prices hit, $6, $7, $8, in some places even $10 in California. And what I did was, knowing that the government was never going to allow these oil prices to skyrocket, what I did, around the peak price, I sold a lot of my oil shares, SM and SLCA specifically. And since then, SM went from $55 or $56 down to $29. Right now, they're about $29. And SLCA, I think, went from like 15 or 16 or something like that down to 11. But that, that's all in the past now. The reality is the oil gas run is over. Now, oil prices are going up because China has restarted their factories. Oil prices are going up. Gas prices are going up. Europe is going to, as we approach the summer, Europe is going to want more gas and more oil. Not to mention that these cold winters are causing a situation where, these people are being forced to ration heat. Like in my house, I can keep my thermostat between 70 and 75 if I want. In some of those European countries, these people are forced to turn their thermostats down because they have to save energy. They were forcing people in England, they were forcing them to turn their lights off. France, turn your lights off. Germany, turn your lights off, saving as much energy as possible. They're forcing these people to turn their lights off, turn down your thermostat, freeze, suffer, because you have to help with the war effort. That's what they were doing. So, long story short, now we're getting to the point where the Saudi Arabians are basically saying, wait a minute, let's look at the numbers. Should we be worried about the 331 million people in America? Or should we be worried about the 4 billion people in Asia? Saudi Arabia is considering dropping the US dollar or accepting the Chinese yuan instead of the US dollar. So it says Saudi Arabia considers accepting yuan instead of dollars for Chinese oil sales. It used to be America forced the Saudis to only accept the dollar, but the dollar is now $32 trillion in debt. The dollar is now, suffering high inflation. And now the Saudis are thinking about it. They're like, wait a minute, there's only 331 million of you. We can get defense if we need it. We can get it from China. We can get it from Russia. There's over 4 billion people in Asia. There's 1.4 billion in India. There's 1.4 billion in China. There's God knows how many people in Southeast Asia. There's Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Philippines. There's a bunch of countries down there. Myanmar. There's a bunch of those. Burma. There's a bunch of those countries. And they're like, wait a minute. I'm starting to think that China is going to be a more powerful powerhouse than America is. And what they probably see is America pulling back and divesting itself. I did this in the video the other day. I was talking about America divesting itself from the global chips market. Taiwan, which America is afraid that China may try to take over, produce 90% of these silicon chips, which are basically in everything. The heated, cooled seats in your car, your microwave, your refrigerator, your oven, your computer, obviously. Your monitors need them. Your car has thousands of them, just your car. And long story short, America divesting itself from China, America divesting itself from Russia and Russian energy, oil. The only logical possibilities is that America ends up having to do more of a partnership with Venezuela, or America ends up opening drilling in Alaska or Canada. Well, we can't really do anything in Canada, but we could force the Canadians to drill more. So the reality is, divestment is the word of the day. We're trying to divest from China, divest from Russia. So let's look at part of the story. This is Wall Street Journal. Saudi Arabia is in active talks with Beijing to price some of its oil sales to China in yuan. People familiar with the matter said a move that would dent the U.S. dollar's dominance of the global petroleum market and mark another shift by the world's top crude exporter towards Asia. Well, here's a question. Why wouldn't Saudi Arabia be focused on Asia? Asia is, you got to understand the numbers. Just look it up. Just look up the population. Ask Siri, what's the population? And she'll tell you. America's got 331 million people. If you look at Asia, or even let's just look at Africa. Africa by itself has 1 billion people. South America by itself has 1 billion people. They ain't worried about 330 million people when they've got over 4 billion people as customers. The world population supposedly just crossed 8 billion people. America only got 330 million. So here's the thing. Do you think they worried about 330 million when you've got billions of developing nations people coming up that want oil? The answer is obviously not. So these people can't afford electric cars. These people ain't got houses. They ain't got no place to charge nothing. They don't have light bulbs. You go to certain parts of some of these countries, it's dark. They ain't got light. They ain't got electricity. They got them little putt-putt motor scooters, though, and they need oil. They need gas. So do you think Saudi Arabia is worried about 330 million Americans, most of which are so deep in debt that they can't even afford to buy a car right now? Most of which are so deep in debt that they can't afford to buy a house right now. Do you think they're worried about 330 million Americans, or do you think they're worried about, 4 to 5 billion other people? The talks with China over yuan-priced oil contracts have been off and on for 6 years, but have accelerated this year as the Saudis have grown increasingly unhappy with decades-old U.S. security commitments to defend the kingdom, the people have said. The Saudis are angry over the U.S. lack of support for their intervention in the Yemen civil war and over the Biden administration's attempt to strike a deal with Iran over its nuclear program. Saudi officials have said they were shocked by the precipitous U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan last year. So basically, with Biden's withdrawal from Afghanistan, our allies have taken a look and they were like, wait a minute, if they'll pull out that quickly and leave these people hanging, what would they do to us? That's scary. China buys more than 25% of the oil that Saudi Arabia exports. If priced in yuan, those sales would boost the standing of China's currency. The Saudis are also considering including yuan-denominated future contracts known as the petro-yuan in the pricing model of Saudi Arabian Oil Co., known as Aramco. It would be a profound shift for Saudi Arabia to price even some of its roughly 6.2 million barrels of day. I think, were they supposed to say a day? 6.2 million barrels of day of crude exports in anything other than dollars. I think you were supposed to say a day, 6.2 million barrels a day, whatever. The majority of global oil sales, around 80%, are done in dollars. And the Saudis have traded oil exclusively in dollars since 1974 in a deal with the Nixon administration that included security guarantees for the kingdom. China introduced yuan-priced oil contracts in 2018 as part of its efforts to make its currency tradable across the world. But they haven't made a dent in the dollar's dominance. I'm drinking this wine here, so I'm having a little trouble with cross-eyedness. Got this red wine right here. I got this sangria. All right, has become a hazard highlighted by U.S. sanctions over Iran over its nuclear program and on Russia in response to the Ukraine invasion. China has stepped up its courtship of the Saudi kingdom. In recent years, China has helped Saudi Arabia build its own ballistic missiles, consulted on a nuclear program, and begun investing in Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's pet projects, such as Neom, a futuristic city Saudi Arabia has invited President Xi Jinping to visit later this year. So right there, you got a picture of the Chinese and the Saudi Arabians. Everybody's got masks on. Everybody looks like ninjas from Batman 2. From like Ra's al Ghul, the League of Shadows, everybody right here has got these. I don't even know why they still got the mask on. Guys, COVID's over. It's over. You fooled us. You got us once. It's over. Okay? Meanwhile, the Saudi relationship with the U.S. has deteriorated under President Biden, who said in the 2020 campaign that the kingdom should be a pariah for the killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi in 2018. Somebody in my community chat mentioned that. If you're going to call the Saudis pariahs, yeah, you kind of got to expect some of this. Prince Mohammed, who U.S. intelligence authorities say ordered Mr. Khashoggi's killing, refused to sit in on a call between Mr. Biden and the Saudi ruler, King Salman, last month. It also comes as the U.S. economic relationship with the Saudis is diminishing. The U.S. is now among the top oil producers in the world. It once imported 2 million barrels of Saudi crude a day in the early 1990s, but those numbers have fallen to less than 500,000 barrels a day in December 2021, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. By contrast, China's oil imports have swelled over the last 3 decades, in line with its expanding economy. Saudi Arabia was China's top crude supplier in 2021, selling at 1.7 million barrels a day, almost 1.77, followed by Russia at 1.6 million a day, according to data from China's General Administration of Customs. The dynamics have dramatically changed. The U.S. relationships with the Saudis has changed. China is the world's biggest crude importer, and they are offering many lucrative incentives to the kingdom, said a Saudi official familiar with the talks. China has been offering everything you could possibly imagine to the kingdom, the official said. So this is going to go on and on and on and on and on, but I think you get the gist of it. So the question is, how long are the Asians going to continue to favor America when they are sitting right next door to each other and they have way more to offer each other than America does? Because when you really think about it, what does America offer the Saudis that the Chinese can't? First of all, fighter programs like the F-35, the Europeans don't want the F-35, and neither do the Saudis. Stealth fighters are extremely expensive programs. They could just as easily buy Chinese jets. They could. They could easily buy Russian jets if they wanted to. They may also not be comfortable, as the article states, with the state of America's pullout from Afghanistan. They may have seen that and said, well, listen, if these people cut and run on them, what will they do to us? They may not trust us. I'm thinking they don't trust us, especially if you're going to call them out for killing Khashoggi. Now, I'm not going to say whether it was right or wrong to call them out for killing Khashoggi. My thing is, if you're going to call them out in public and you've got a situation where, they're, what is that called? Biting the hand that feeds you? Maybe that's not a smart thing to do over a journalist who, because see, you got to understand, in these foreign countries, they don't play that freedom of speech shit. They don't have that. When I was in Thailand, this is Thailand, but when I was in Thailand, they told you up front, do not talk about the royal family. Do not talk about the constitutional monarchy that's going on here. Do not talk about the king of Thailand. Do not talk about the royal family. So here's the thing. You know what I did while I was in Thailand? I enjoyed the buko juice. I enjoyed the lovely ladies. And I did just about everything legally that I could except talk about the royal family. But there's some people who don't care about any of that. And what they do is they write articles and they start talking shit on the internet. And then the royal family has you chopped up and put into a suitcase. Now, they told you not to talk about the royal family, but you did. Now, do you have a First Amendment free speech right? No, you don't. In fact, I'm not going to name names, some of your religions specifically say that if you say the wrong things about certain prophets and certain gods, that you just might have a death order put on your head and you might be killed in public. They don't have First Amendment. There are some ladies from some countries that decide to go overseas and start protesting. Oh, I'm going to take off my hijab. I can do what I want. You can't tell me what to do. I can do what I want. And they're at the soccer game and they're protesting. They got the hijab off. They're showing their hair. They got their face out. Well, guess what? At the end of those games, you got to go back home, don't you? Right back to your theocracy country, right? Has anybody heard from any of those women? Because I haven't heard from any of them. I know we forget about stuff real quick, but you remember all those lovely ladies who were protesting? They were like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna take off my hijab. I'll do what I want." Because there's one of the Manosphere dudes, Ramil. He always says hoes is winning, right? And I'm like, no, they're winning here. But that's a good question. Has anybody heard from any of those lovely ladies? Anybody? I haven't heard from them since those games in Qatar. I haven't heard from. In fact, the Qatarian government went so far as to replace protesters in the crowd with paid applause. So the people came there just to get paid, just to applause while they're playing that boring ass soccer game. But as for those lovely ladies who decided that they were going to go and start some shit on camera, I haven't heard nothing from them. Have you? Because I haven't. Have you heard anything from them? If anybody has heard from these ladies, please tell me, because I haven't heard from them. I haven't heard from them lately. I wonder where they are. I wonder if they're in a basement getting caned right now. I wonder where they are. I wonder if they're under house arrest right now. I don't know. All I know is certain governments, they don't play that shit. China's another one. China don't play that. China said, China had I believe it was Hu Jintao, the last leader, I believe it was President Hu Jintao. They had him escorted out, not handcuffed, because the Chinese, they don't handcuff you. They grab you. Like, instead of handcuffing people, they send enough guys over there to grab you by each arm and they walk you out. President Xi supposedly had him walked out of there. Anybody heard from Hu Jintao lately? Excuse me. Hello, Mr. Hu Jintao. We're looking for you. Paging Mr. Hu Jintao. Where are you? By the way, Jack Ma from Alibaba. Oh, yeah, the Chinese government, they don't know what they doing. They bullshit. They running us into the ground. Has anybody heard from Jack Ma lately? Anybody? Has anybody heard from him? Now, I'm not saying that what they're doing is right. What I'm saying is that those governments and those countries run a certain way, and they run the way they run, and they're not playing no fucking games. That's what I'm saying. So bottom line is, I already kind of did, just recently, I already did a video about future stock bets, because I pretty much already know what I'm betting on. Like, I already specifically said I'm betting on my index, Mangoat, which is Microsoft, Apple, Nvidia, Google, oil stocks, Tesla, and I think it was Amazon and Apple, Amazon and AMD and Apple. But on top of that, since I already know that America is going whole hog on these chips, I've already gotten into Micron, Intel, and AMD, but I already told you about AMD a while ago. AMD, and I told you about AMD with Logitech back when they were under $50. Now they're up to $96. And I've got these fools, oh yeah, well, did you see XRP? XRP went up 10 cents. I'm like, okay, that's great. So XRP went from 30 cents to like 49, and then it went to 50 cents. Could you do me a favor? Tell me where all the money is that XRP has evaporated since it was at like $3.50. What happened to all that money? See, you're talking about the rise when it's very low. I'm talking about what happened to the dip when it was very high. Where's the rest of those people's money? But that was the thing. While people were betting crypto, I was telling people, oh, no. Get oil stocks while they're low. Get them while they're damn near zero. Get them while they're negative. Oh, no. I'm betting on Bitcoin. We going to the moon. We going to Pluto. That's what they were telling me. We going to Saturn. That's what they were telling me. They were telling me XRP was going to the moon. They said XRP is going to Saturn. They said Bitcoin's going to Pluto. They said Ethereum was going to Mars and all this. That's what they were saying. That never happened, did it? No, it didn't. No, it did not. In fact, they've lost over 60% of their value since their highs within the last 2 years. And I have to wonder, where'd all that money go? Where'd it go? Where's Nayib Bukele in El Salvador? Where's he? Because he's so smart. Oh, yeah, we're going to bet on Bitcoin. We're going to get it at 55,000. Uh-oh, it's down to 50. But don't worry, we're going to buy the dip, everybody. Buy the dip. Buy the dip. Buy the dip. Where is Nayib Bukele right now? Where's El Salvador's Bitcoin holdings right now? Because, I'm not a mathematician, but it looks like they lost half their money since they bought the dip. Half. That's where it looks like they lost about half their money. I could keep on tooting my own horn, but I don't really have to. You get the point. So the bottom line is, as far as investment strategies, let's assume that America is divesting from China and divesting from Russia. And let's assume that even when it comes to oil, gas, energy, natural gas, such and such, let's assume that America is going to focus more on domestic production. And let's assume that India and Mexico are going to be America's go-tos for production in the near future. The talks about Apple moving to India. The talks about moving certain manufacturing to Mexico. Well, they've already done that, but let's just assume India and Mexico are the next big plays. Let's just assume that. Now the question is, what would you personally, because you probably invest differently than I do. I personally like tech stocks, big oil. I like banks because banks are always going to be here, especially the major banks. I'm not talking about them little ass banks like Second National and all those stupid little banks. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the big banks like J.P. Morgan Chase and who else? Capital One. Like, I'm talking about the big ones. I'm not talking about the little ones. So I'm talking about too big to fail. So I like banks. I like oil. I like tech. I like, what else do I like? Automotive companies, because they've already proven that they're recession proof. So the question is, anything that has factories, I like. If they have factories and they're building shit, it's just like I bought into Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and Raytheon, because the military industrial complex will continue to be fed one way or another. Let's just assume that those are new big plays. Let's assume Mexico and India are where they're going to start moving production. So then you have to think, okay, what stocks do I get that benefit from production being moved to India and Mexico? Now, I prefer the big ones like Apple, Microsoft. I prefer them. But I'm sure you can think of some others that I have never even thought of because I focus on the dividends. But something bad is coming. And it looks to me like the US dollar is going to decline in power. It looks to me that over time, especially if OPEC decides to start pricing to the Chinese are trying to divest from the US dollar. They don't want the US dollar. They don't want that to be the reserve. They don't want it. And if they're doing it, you can bet that Russia pretty much already has. So then the question is, well, how do you make that work for you? And I believe that the best way to deal with this is to focus on production, companies that produce products, companies with factories, especially the ones that you hear about in the news coming soon, India and Mexico. That's where I think you should be focusing.
I so rarely see someone who has a Jeep SRT just like mine. Let him go through. Very interesting to see someone. Oh, I hear he got his to be loud. It's like, yes, could you promote the SRT brand any louder, sir? So, anyway, I'm over here going to see John Wick. Gotta go to the mall over here. Yeah. A lot of people are saying, yeah, you should keep your Jeep when you get the Cadillac. I'm thinking, yeah, I might as well. Because the thing about it is, right now, the used car market's fucked up. The new car market's fucked up. And the Federal Reserve just raised these interest rates to 5%. So that means that it's like, first of all, not to mention there's not a whole lot of choices, or there's nothing that you really, really want that you can actually afford. Everything's marked up $100,000. It's fucking ridiculous. So the issue ultimately is, it's like, there's not that many options, So might as well hold on to this car, because otherwise I would have to buy a second all-new car. Meanwhile, this car I've kept in very good condition and runs just fine. So, the only thing I want to get for this car is new wheels, new tires, because I think the rims and tires on this car, I think, could use for replacing. Other than that, it's fine. The city streets have damaged my wheels and tires. My rims have been beaten up. I had to actually repair them for a crack at one point. Oh, there's another one. There's a white one. Interesting. Yeah, it's hard to, you don't really see many of these things. And then, they made that new WL model, so the WKs are basically extremely obsolete because they're complete. But I think the WLs use the same parts for the most part as WKs, except the exterior. The WLs have a new exterior, but a lot of the mechanical parts, not the cosmetic parts, but a lot of the mechanical parts are about the same. So, I don't know. I'll probably end up keeping this because since Cadillac made me wait so long to get my new car, I don't really think they would offer me the numbers that I want for this one, so it's probably not even worth it. So we got AMC. Oh yeah, AMC's going to the moon. Yeah, we going to the moon. We got a short squeeze. Yeah, how'd that shit go? AMC. AMC's a joke. But I have to say, the theaters are pretty good. I mean, the theaters are decent. I mean, they got like reclining seats and everything. They got really soft recliners and this, that, and other. So we're going in there to see John Wick. There it is. There it is. That's the Emirates A380. Look at this. And that baby's coming in for a landing. Coming in from Dubai. Oh, man. I miss that plane so much. I'm up here sitting in business class, flying from Maldives and Seychelles. Oh, man, I miss that freaking plane. Look at that thing. That monster.
To be continued.